And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
One of my favorite books to read as a child was the 1001 Tales of Arabian Nights. I don't think there was 1,000 of them for sure, but there was a lot of stories and I really enjoyed those. I heard about the game Tales of Arabian Nights, but Z-Man Games has just published a reprint of the game. And when you pick the box up, it's really heavy, but inside is the main part of this game, which is a book. Don't like to read? Don't play this game. You like those old choose-your-own-adventure stories? Then this might be the one for you. For me to talk a little bit more about the game, though, I want to show you a little bit about how it works. Here's the board for the game, and before you start the game, you're going to pick one of many different familiar characters. For example, this is Sinbad. You can pick Ali Baba, there's Aladdin, and several different characters that you can pick. You're then going to be taking a board of your color, and then on that board, you'll place a marker to show what character you are, and then the game begins. But before you begin the game, there's one more thing you have to do, and that has to do with these tracks that are on both sides of the board. You can see one on this side and one on the other side. The one is story and the other is destiny. Now, at the beginning of the game, you will decide how much story you want and how much destiny you want. So, for example, I could say I'm going to go for 20 story and 0 destiny, or 10 story and 10 destiny. It's basically my choice, and that will be secretly kept by taking a certain amount of tokens to show what my story and destiny is. It might have been easier just to write those down on a piece of paper, but so be it. And then players will use markers of their colors to show how much destiny they get as the game goes by. Players will also keep track of their wealth. And let's flip the board around to see that better. A wealth track is kept during the course of the game, and it shows you, depending on how wealthy you are at any point in time, how far you can move on land and how far you can move on sea. It's an interesting feature, and it does matter at different points during the game about how wealthy you are. And so, basically, the game is going to progress as players are going to, on their turn, depending on their movement, take their pieces and move them a certain amount of spaces. After they move them, that's when the game gets interesting. On your turn, you're going to be drawing from a deck of encounter cards to see what encounter you have that turn. These cards can be all kinds of things. You can run across a slave, or a wizard, or a hunchback, or a genie. Or in this card, you might run across an elephant, or it might be another encounter. It depends on what location you're in. Same thing with this one, with the serpent. Or sometimes you'll draw a city card, which kind of gives you a random encounter, but also then allows you to go to that city and maybe have further adventures in that city. I will then open the book to the number that the card directs me to. So let's say, for example, here I'm looking at the beggar, and we got friendly beggars, destitute beggars, whatever. It's whatever kind of beggar. I look at the number of the location I'm in. Each location has a number on it, and then I roll a die and add that number. So let's say I was standing in a location with 3. I add this die 3 to it, 6. So I run into a disguised beggar. I then will look at my card on the matrix that the book tells me to. So this book here says Matrix C. So I look at Matrix C, and here are different ways that I can communicate with the beggar. I can beat him, I can enrich him, rob him, avoid him, question him, attack him, follow him, or hire him. It's up to me on which of those choices I can make. After I do that, another player will have this big folding card here called the reaction matrices, and they're going to look at C and look at what kind of beggar that is, and then what I pick to do. So for example, let's say he was a crafty beggar, and I decided to rob him. The number that we're going to get there is 1864. The player then will turn in this book to paragraph 1864, find that paragraph, but before I do it, I'm going to roll a die, and I might add one to that number, going to 1865, subtract one, going to 1863, or get nothing and simply go to 1864. When they get to that paragraph, they will read me that paragraph. Depending on what skills I have, might change what the paragraph does. Sometimes it gives you a choice. And then there's a result, which will usually give you destiny and or story points, sometimes take them away. It will give you different skills. You might find treasures. It might lead to another encounter. You really don't know what you're going to run across with every encounter. But I'll tell you this, it's going to be crazy. There's a lot of features that come with the game, and these are some of the cards. At the beginning of the game, each player is given a quest, and if you accomplish whatever that quest tells you, it might tell you to go visit certain cities, go find a certain treasure, what have you, you'll get rewards. There are all kinds of treasure cards that you can get, including Aladdin's famous lamp, the 100 keys, the brass trumpet, several things from the story. And then these cards, which are all kinds of things that can happen to you. You can become cursed, turn into a beast, become smitten in love, become married, become the Sultan. There's all these different things that will happen as a result of different things. There's also piles of tokens that show different skills you'll get. For example, you might get weapons use or get the Grandmaster weapon use as the game goes by, or piety, or luck. And all these will contribute to how you deal with future encounters. I talked about all that because I wanted to explain a little bit about why I like the game so much. There are certain spots on the map that you can only go to if you get a certain location in the story, and then you go to these unique locations and have wondrous adventures happen to you. And you can try to get that to happen, but what basically is going to happen is you're going to come across a beggar. And you might try to befriend the beggar, or beat the beggar, or steal from him, or whatever the chart allows you to do. But you really don't know what's going to happen. So you just do pick an option, and you see how the story goes along. This is going to drive some of you crazy. Some of you are going to want absolute control in your games. This does not. It allows you to pick where you go. It allows you to pick what you want to do. But all kinds of crazy things will happen to you. You will be eaten by a giant rock. You will be chased by genies. You will be crippled by an attack from a beggar who you just gave money to. There are so many different things and so many things that might happen you really never know. Yeah, there's a bit of maybe trying to push. You're going to go in a certain direction. Maybe go explore over here looking for something specific. But there's a lot of luck. But the book, I am really impressed with this book. It's very well written. There's over 2,000 different encounters. So you could play multiple games and not run into the same thing. Although a few, as we've been playing multiple times, I have run into a few of the encounters a few times on top of each other, but there's always unique and interesting things, and I think it will take us a while before we get to everything, and maybe we never will get to everything just because some of the encounters are much rarer than others, and we just might not ever run across those. But I love it. It's well written. It's written in the style that the Arabian Nights that I read were. There's a glossary of terms in case you don't know, and it's just fun to watch a story. I can be a crippled guy who was just forced to marry this evil enchantress and have to go back and visit her all the time or she'll cast a spell, being chased by palace guards from the Sultan for falsely accusing me of theft, and then get diseased and turned into a beast, and it is hilarious. It's fun. You have 2 hours here, and you know, there are times where I haven't even played the game. I've just read from the book to other players, and I still had a blast because it was so much fun watching the stories unfold. You like stories? It is in this game. It is fun. There is more theme than game here. I mean, probably this game is 90% theme, 10% game, but it's fun.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.